I'm Henry Gunner, and I'm answering history's questions. The Enlightenment and Scientific Revolution movements, you ask? Did women have an impact on them, you ask? Well, I think I have just the thing to answer your question, as well as a little bit of background information on the era. You see, the Enlightenment and the Scientific Revolution saw huge changes in thought and science across Europe. But one idea that was not debated was gender equality. Women were largely shut out from all major institutions. But two women strove against these biases in pursuit of their own discoveries. These two women were Margret Cavendish and Maria Winkelmann. Margaret Cavendish was born in 1623 in England to a family of prominent aristocratic royalists. This is important because when the Civil War broke out, she fled to France, and while in Paris, met and married William Cavendish. They later moved to Amsterdam, where Margaret was first introduced to science, especially natural philosophy. She wrote 6 books on this subject, including Grounds of Natural Philosophy, which is one of her best-known works. She was also a strong supporter of Thomas Hobbes and his theories. One of her own theories was that if atoms were animated, they would have free will and therefore be unable to form complex organisms. Unfortunately, her ideas went largely unrecognized by the scientific community, simply because she was a woman. Apart from science, she also wrote about more controversial topics such as society and power, for she has said, "It is easier to ask pardon than permission." By Margaret's death in England in 1673, she had written 14 books and 20 plays. Margaret's work shows that the mindset of the era was far more inquisitive and looked for new answers to better explain the world. It also shows a greater freedom of speech than in the past. Prior to Margaret's death, Maria Winkelmann was born in Germany. The year was 1670. Maria received a formal education from her father, and when she was of age, married the greatly accomplished astronomer Gottfried Kirch. Although Maria was technically his assistant, they were both equally regarded by others. Their elite work on collecting data on weather patterns and precise calendars brought them to the Royal Academy of Berlin. But when Gottfried died, Maria was barred from taking his place. And although, in 1716, Maria's son Kreisfried regained Gottfried's old position, Maria was only able to be his assistant for a short time before she was kicked out again for having too prominent a role in her son's work. Maria was forced to quit astronomy and died in Berlin in 1720. Maria's most lasting works are her conjectures on the orbit of Venus and Saturn around the Sun, which are still used today. Maria had also discovered a comet in 1702, but she was forced to let Gottfried take the credit, lest their discovery be discredited. This is yet another example as to how prominent the gender bias was during this time, the constraints of which both women struggled against their entire lives. Margaret Cavendish and Maria Winkelmann showed that women were just as capable as men in intellectual pursuits. And although this didn't cause change, it was just another reason to prove one point. Could the gender bias against women be justified? I'm Henry Gunner, and thanks for watching.